Hello and welcome to the third episode of No Holds Barred. That's Sal.
Good afternoon.
And I'm Don. Together we're going to take a weekly look at all things political, social and anything else we can think of really. No Holds Barred. As always, we'll be chatting a bit about some of this week's news and politics. Last week we talked about loads of different things. It kind of went on and we got through quite a lot of subjects. We're going to answer a couple of listener questions or have a lot of comments, and we'd love you to send in some of your own righteous rants like we had last week from Esheru.
Anytime you're angry, whatever grinds your gears, just let us know.
Exactly.
It'll do it to us as well.
Exactly. If you want to get involved, you can get us on X. DMs are open all the time. Scary. And you can also email us at NoHoldBarredPod@proton.me. All the details will be in the show notes as always, and on my Twitter header. It's got them all there if you need them. Send us an email, a video, voice note, anything you want really. As Sal just said, if whatever's making you angry or upset, send it to us and we'll deal with it. Right, let's get on with the show. Where should we start this week?
Well, should we get PMQs out the way?
Yeah, you go on PMQs.
I can rattle that off pretty quickly because, what's the point?
Yeah.
So they started by mentioning Mark Carney's now the new PM of Canada again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's handy that the right didn't take over. Don't think that was going to happen with Trump on the horizon, but anyway. So that happened.
Was a big thing, yeah.
Bad Enoch, I don't know what the point of her is. She stood up, started wanging on about trade deals because she's some sort of expert, I don't know. After that, she then, she went on to rape gangs, screaming at Starmer about human rights and how he's not a human rights lawyer anymore. And he then replied to her that she spent 3 years as the Women's and Equalities Minister and did absolutely nothing about rape gangs or, in fact, anything about the 1% prosecution sum total.
Yeah, right.
She was that bad that woman after my own heart, Nadia Whitmore, stood up afterwards and actually said, "You are a disgrace" to Kemi Badenoch for the way she'd used, women's trauma as a stick to beat Starmer with. It's just disgusting. She then asked Starmer if he would lift the 2-child benefit cap because, all the research shows and the studies show that it's just going to plunge more kids into poverty. And he again insulted her intelligence by giving her a complete non-answer and battered it away. And that was pretty much the sum total of everything that happened. Another utterly pointless episode.
It was really rubbish. I quickly listened to it while I was out fixing the lawn, and it wasn't really worth it, was it at all? Yeah, like you say, Starmer batting that 2-child policy, 2-child cap limit away is a bit shameful, really, isn't it?
All of it is shameful, and the fact that for whatever reason protocol seems to dictate no one's allowed to tell them what they're doing is abhorrent. Just seems to fuel the fire. It's so performative and nonsensical. I don't understand it.
Yeah,
that it's being allowed to persist, but here we are. Pudding, don't do that. Sorry, the cats are interfering.
The cats
today.
of the pod are involved. Well, yeah, I kind of said that last week. I was kind of incredulous as to you telling me about the different. I think it was the universal credit uplift during COVID and the way they sort of sneakily used that, weaponized that, and that was the Tories. But it's just now carried on, and we're kind of like week after week, another thing happens that just is a continuation from the previous government.
I mean, I for one cannot wait to stop having to talk about the benefits issue.
Yeah.
For all the reasons. I don't want to have to talk about it, but what can we do? That we have no recourse left that works.
No.
Other than talking and trying to spread the message and hoping.
Yeah, exactly. You have to get it out there. It's just a nonsense. I just don't get it, and still incredulous this week as it was last week about what they're up to and what their long game is and how they see it panning out.
Well, even Liz Webster, who's the sort of rejoin farming champion lady, who
Yeah.
I've got a lot of time for Liz, don't get me wrong. Not that I always agree with her, but she's a nice lady.
Yeah.
She posted yesterday something about how Brexit's like been killing people. And I had to go on and I said, I'm awfully sorry to tell you, Liz, but this is where you find out nobody gives a toss.
Yeah.
Because I've been shouting for over a decade and it's his Labour.
Yeah.
So, and then somebody else today was banging on about, it's for later on, but it was about the tax on private schools. And somebody posted underneath saying, this is disgraceful. It's an abuse of human rights. It's like, I've got a memo for you, mate.
The VAT on private schools is an abuse of human rights. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're unlikely to find anybody who gives a toss.
Well,
ever.
yeah, very, very few people. There's some sort of class action being raised against the government by the parents. I read about it last week. I don't know.
Oh, they can find legal fees, can they? Just not education fees.
Exactly.
I see.
Yeah.
How many of them are lawyers exactly?
Yeah, a great many, I would imagine.
It's the greed, isn't it? I want someone to just sit in front of a wealthy person and ask, why are you so greedy? Do you think it's a sickness? Because it is.
Well, it is. It definitely is. It definitely is. It's just gross, really. And the private school thing is just, God. I mean, I'll have to talk about it in a couple of weeks' time or something, because I wrote a huge long article about it last year, and I got everybody replying to me about it. And some of the arguments they put forward is just ludicrous. It's like, why this? Oh no, we are going to have to scrimp and save, but they don't understand that. Well, if you can scrimp and save an extra $8,000 a year, whatever, an extra $12,000 a year in most cases, then it puts you in a position above 90% of the country. But that is not. They don't understand that. They can't grasp that concept that they're privileged in wealth-wise above the rest of the country. They just don't see it.
Oh so, no, yeah. I think they can grasp it, but I think they look at it as entitlement.
Right.
We've educated ourselves to this position, therefore we deserve better and more because we've worked so hard. Well, have you ever worked as a brickie for 12 months, getting up every day at 6 a.m? Have you ever done that? Sod off.
I know. Yeah, I have to collate that a bit and all the different stuff that I got from that last year when I wrote the article, because it's really interesting, the takes on it, and some ranging from like the utterly bizarre takes to the kind of, okay, you can kind of get where you're coming from, but you've still got to take a step back. And I think that's where a lot of them don't have that ability to step back and realize where they are in their position to be able to afford to put their kids in private school in the first place. So
I think we're on about, what word can I use for it? I've lost the word. We're on about round 3 of, let's call it austerity pickup, where the poor are plunged even further into poverty. Like the third run of austerity getting worse. And throughout all this time, many people, like myself, have been sitting here screaming, if they're going to do it to us, they're going to do it to the working class, and then they're going to do it to the middle class. And this is how it, until you stand up and say, no, killing the disabled is wrong, it's never going to stop, because they know they can get away with it, until they are shown by the people they think support them that what they're doing is not on. It's just forever going to happen. And it's just pulling the wealth gap further. And it really is snapping.
Yeah, definitely is. It definitely is. Something has to change. I've got this, I don't know if it's a sneaky feeling or whatever. I'm just trying to hope that things might change after tomorrow. I think an awful lot's been leading up to these elections tomorrow, and even though they're not huge, there's one by-election for an MP and a load of council seats. I think particularly Labour have been really, I know, and they did it right up to the general election, the Ming Vars strategy, isn't it, of trying to keep themselves quiet. I just don't know.
An avoidance strategy is what it is.
It is an avoidance strategy, you're right. they're playing politics rather than actually trying to govern properly. But I think that's maybe things will be slightly. I'm being hopeful. I'm trying to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Things might move on after tomorrow, but we'll see.
I don't think it'll make any difference whatsoever. I think if Reform do well, like we said last week, they won't do well next year.
No.
How often are council elections?
Every year, but not in every area. Okay. So
because we haven't got them now. I haven't had to vote today on anything.
Yeah, I've been.
Bad FOMO.
Yeah, I went across to our little village voting booth. Hence why we.
But I would lay a bet that however many Reform seats are won today, there will be less of those people in those positions this time next year.
Oh yeah, I would imagine.
Quite confident of that.
Yeah, 100%.
A lot of fair weather people in there, I'd suspect.
Oh yeah, definitely. I wrote that this morning. Like, let them have their council seats. Let them have their little parade tomorrow. We won 14 state council by-elections. Well, now do some work. Let's see what happens after that.
I'm very interested to see how the Greens do, because nobody's mentioned them at all.
No, I think they'll do well.
Well, I'm hoping they're going to be the dark horse.
Yeah, I mean, that's who I voted for in our local area. I'm not shy to admit it. We've got a Labour councillor at the moment, and he's quite good actually. He's very active in the local area. But our Green councillor is even better, and I think she'll make a good step forward. So, but I do think the Greens will pick up a lot. Certainly down in the southwest where we are, the traditional Lib Dem kind of vote, I think, maybe shifting a little bit towards the Greens. So especially, I think they might get Bristol, well, the West of England mayor. I hope they do. Hope it's not Aaron Banks. God, can you imagine if Aaron Banks became the mayor of the southwest? He's been absolutely unbearable on Twitter this week. Like,
he is. He's generally unbearable, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Putin's mate.
Yeah, he is. I'm doing some research for an article / podcast on him. So he's more to come on Aaron Banks. I have some acquaintances who know him and his family quite well, so I've got a bit of a story brewing.
Interesting. Got an inside track.
Yeah, a little bit.
Have you listened to Carol Cadwallader's Spotify Sergey and the Spy Ring?
No, I haven't.
Oh, highly recommend it. It's on Spotify and probably other places.
Yeah.
Sergey and the Spy Ring, I think it's called. It's like a 8-part series, I think, and it's a genuine story about a guy who came over from Russia to work, was asked to help set up Conservative Friends of Russia.
Yeah.
And was all for it back in the day when he was quite naive, like I used to be. And very, very quickly discovered that there was nothing egalitarian about this membership at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was all very, very dark.
Right.
And that's not who he was, unusually.
Interesting.
For someone who was picked for that kind of job. So it's a really good listen. Highly recommend it.
I will definitely listen to that before next week.
Just with Carol's history with Aaron Banks, obviously.
Yeah, of course. All that side of things. Yeah. Conservative Friends of Russia, that ended up being Matthew Elliott, didn't he? He's quite a character as well. He was one of Boris Johnson's friends who became the leader of the.
He sounds familiar. He may have been mentioned. It's a few months ago. I listened to it now. It's like
I'll get on that.
Stockings, so.
Definitely.
Yeah, well worth a listen.
Yeah, anything Carol Cadwallader says is worth reading / listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so that's local elections. I think we're gonna find out tomorrow. I think like you said, Reform will get a few seats. Fine, let them have them. See what happens.
They're just all whoppers, aren't they? Everyone they seem to field has like a history of just awful things.
Yeah, nearly all of them, as far as I can tell. They've got Darren Grimes as a councillor now as well. Well,
oh God, I've forgotten about that. Jesus.
No retching on the podcast. The thing is, he might get it because of where he is, and he's gone his local kind of area, so he's got a bit of support. He might become a Reform councillor as of tomorrow. So,
well, you don't know who the opposition is, do you? It might be somebody else who's actually known for being decent.
An actual, proper, credible politician, yeah, maybe.
As opposed to a deviant.
Yeah. think we mentioned him last week, didn't we? He can't become a regular on the podcast. Definitely not.
It's the Muslim nuns, wasn't it?
Oh, that was
Well,
it.
hopefully they won't vote him in and he'll just go away.
But fingers crossed. Yeah, that would be nice.
Oh.
I don't see it, but I wish it would be true. Cool. Yeah, PMQs, local elections. Anything else on that you've got?
No, it was just tedious.
Yeah.
Usual
More
nonsense.
so than usual, yeah.
They just get nothing done. It's unserious. None of them mean any of it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think so. Oh yeah, the other interesting thing in the local elections is the by-election in Runcorn. That is actually a seat up for grabs, a proper one, because of Labour's
Mike Amesbury
boxing MP, yeah, getting into a punch-up. I don't know. It'd be interesting. It's what they keep saying, it's Labour's 13th safest seat out of their however many they've got.
I couldn't tell you either way.
No, if Reform get that, it will be a big win for them. But I can't see it.
If memory serves, the woman there platforming's incredibly well to do.
Yes, she is, yeah.
And Runcorn and Helsby are not incredibly well to do places.
No.
So
I don't know it very well.
I think I don't know who Labour have failed in. They parachuted somebody in, haven't they, I think, again. But Reform will do well to get her voted in because she's ever so,
She is. Sarah Potchin, something like that, isn't it?
Potchin, interesting.
Yeah. Like most of Reform nowadays, they're all ex-Tories, aren't they? So
yeah. Oh yeah, of course she is. Oh, sorry,
she was a Tory. So yeah.
Do you want to talk about Leeds?
Yeah, let's talk about Leeds. Yeah, Leeds. There was a terrorist attack on Saturday last week, wasn't there?
Not that you'd know it.
No, exactly. A white guy, Owen Lawrence or Oz Lawrence. They think that's the guy. Well, no, they know that was the guy because he killed himself.
Oh, did he?
He did. He died yesterday in hospital of self.
I knew he died. I didn't know what he died of.
Self-inflicted, they said. So I think he shot himself with his own, or he stabbed himself. I'm not sure. Sorry, we shouldn't talk about the details because it's not very nice. But the fact is that you just wouldn't know it. It even happened, and it's just bizarre. And it shows to me that most of the media and the news are using the far right, Reform, Farage to frame all their coverage nowadays, because obviously Farage hasn't mentioned it and Reform, and it was on GB News once. I know, I have checked, I did some research. But because...
In fact,
go on.
Sorry to interrupt, I did catch, because I'd heard about it, was it Saturday?
Yeah, it was Saturday.
I'd heard something, so I went on YouTube to have a look to see what news articles there were. And all the news articles were just like a minute long, and they were just like camera footage of the aftermath of like the street with the police standing there. And GB News had done like a 8-minute long piece on it. So reluctantly, and because there was no other option, I clicked on it.
Yeah.
And I swear down, they said something to the effect of, we don't know if the attackers are Muslim yet. That information hasn't yet been released, but we're waiting because things on the ground can change.
Seriously?
Go and look on YouTube. Go and have a look. It'll still be there.
I'm gonna. And
they don't care anymore. They're just openly fascistic.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But yeah, so GB News.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I have to look at that. It's just, I did some quick research on it, and I went onto X Pro, which I love doing to get my data from, and brought up Nigel Farage, Adam Brooks, and David Atherton. You know him, the right wing. Yeah,
God, he's awful.
But he is horrific, but he's at the forefront of punting out this sort of Islamophobic stuff a lot. Yeah. So I thought, well, he's quite a sort of good weather vane to have a look at because there's been a terror attack on the streets of Britain. So let's see what they've got to say. So I first searched the term Leeds, and in the last week, Nigel Farage, Adam Brooks, and David Atherton, zero mentioned. And I thought, okay, maybe that's a bit broad, so I searched the term crossbow because that's what the guy used. Nothing from the three of them. I thought, okay, right, let's narrow it even further, and I put in the term Otley because it happened on a place called the Otley Road. Coincidentally, I used to live around the corner from.
Oh, well.
Yeah, and unsurprisingly, nothing. So they literally didn't mention it. Those three accounts. Now, if you go back to last summer with Southport, those three accounts, well, certainly Atherton and Farage were, yeah, exactly. You couldn't stop them like pontificating or presuming or jumping on it before anyone knew anything. So in the last week, none of them have even mentioned it, not once. And so, there is your proof, if it were ever needed.
Not just that. There was the rape gang that got convicted. Was it Monday?
No, the 10 white guys.
10 Caucasian fellas from, I think, was it Birmingham? I might be making the city up, but I think it was Birmingham.
Yeah.
Again,
nothing.
Absolutely passed everyone by. Not a peep, because it's not about the women and justice.
No,
it's about their racist agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And it's just, that's it. It's proof. It's proof that they don't care about the victims in the rape gangs. It proves that they don't care. This guy on Saturday was an incel far right guy. He said it on his post, the supposed post, alleged post on Facebook. I'm just reading it now. He wrote on his own post, political views reactionary with some small L libertarian sympathies. I have also explored far right ideas by reading through Brenton Tarrant's Great Replacement manifesto, and he lists his weapons, what he's trying to do. He called it the Otley Run massacre. The Otley Run's a pub crawl in Leeds, so from the student area Headingley down into town. I have done it a couple of times, and it was huge. I mean, it's a proper terrorist attack. This guy. I mean, thank God nobody died, but one woman had to have surgery for life-threatening injuries, so she's seriously injured, and the other woman was in hospital as well. But he went for women. They don't give a monkeys, these people. They don't have brown skin, so they don't care. That's literally all they care about. And it's just really upsetting and really disgusting that with proof now that they don't care about victims of anything. It's just to suit, like you said, their racist agenda, and that's it.
It's not just what they're doing on a day-to-day, which I assume they don't really give much thought to. It's the consequences of what they say constantly. That's what they don't give a shit about. They're empowering by ignoring it.
Yeah.
They're just empowering other people to go off and do it.
Yeah, 100%. It does. If you don't call it out, then you basically effectively saying, yeah, no, don't worry about it, it's fine.
Yeah.
And unsurprisingly, I had some people in my comments to my post saying pretty much exactly that. I'm not going to put this guy's name on it, but one of the replies I put to me was, well, what do you think would happen? That people will start to like being kicked in the teeth. People are going to start fighting back everywhere. That was a genuine reply to my post about the terrorist attack. So
I don't understand. Am I being dense?
No, I mean, it's a guy called Matt, and he said, well, it's fair play, basically. What do you think was going to happen? That's what he said.
See, that's a mentality that's problematic, isn't it?
And that's a red flag. It's a huge red flag. And but like you said before, it's the consequences of inaction in this case of the usual suspects, isn't it? They haven't called it out. So this guy, Matt, on Twitter has gone to me, well, it's fine. What do you expect?
Well, it's a bit like the kneecap thing, isn't it, this week? That everyone's trying to get kneecap banned. Yeah. And notwithstanding, one of the quotes they said I find reprehensible, and I think is absolutely wrong, and they should be dealt with for what they said. But as people on Twitter have proven with the receipts, our daily newspapers have been wishing the ending of life on Jeremy Corbyn, for example, and nobody gave a shit about that.
No.
Why is it all of a sudden a problem now? Because they're getting traction, because eyes are on them, because they're creating a furore built off the back of what you're saying. So
yeah, I know.
Is it the Streisand effect?
The Streisand effect, yeah, absolutely on the internet. Yeah, when you Google yourself. Yeah, that's. I mean, someone pointed out the other day that it's Frank Hester, the Tory donor.
He's the other one. Yeah.
Wanted Diane Abbott killed. I mean, you can't. Yeah. That was okay to them, but this isn't. And no, I agree with what you said. They should never say. You should never call for anyone to be murdered. Obviously, I mean that just goes without saying. And Tories or not Tories, but what's the furore around it is just insane. Try.
It's like if you want to make a book popular, ban it. Same thing.
Oh yeah, always. Yeah.
Sex Pistols all over again.
Yeah, 100%. But there's been with Chris, the lovely Chris Philp. I quite enjoy saying his name, even though he's quite reprehensible himself. Has written.
Just a dickhead.
He is a dick.
He's just a pure dickhead.
Well, he's just. He doesn't give a shit about what anyone thinks about him, clearly, because he's one of the few people over successive, going backwards, prime ministers in the Tories who was happy to stand up and defend anything that anyone ever did.
Yeah.
Like through COVID, Johnson, like Truss, he defended Sunak, absolutely everything. And so he doesn't give.
And that's very dangerous.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, he's just doesn't care what anyone thinks, and so he's just paid to be there as a mouthpiece. But
paid sniper, isn't he?
Yeah, well, exactly. He's written to Yvette Cooper to have them removed from Glastonbury, I think it was, or something. As you say, make him popular by banning it. But
hopefully she'll file that right in the filing cabinet on the floor.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, lovely Chris Philp. Yeah, so that I just found it really striking, gross, disgusting, the whole thing about now being able to physically prove that the far right mouthpieces, the popular people on Twitter and social media don't care about and openly being racist now, because if they're
getting paid for it.
Yeah, they are getting paid handsomely for it. And if they called out this guy on Saturday, then you'd maybe think, okay, fair enough. You're being balanced and you're being fair, but they're not. They're just not. And it's there now in the data, in proof that we can see it. So,
but the horrifying thing is that if you go through like criminal charges and stuff,
I'm not sure.
Is she kicking off again? Is she interfering again this week?
I forgot to mute her again. Mute. Sorry, go on. I think there needs to be more made of that. I think,
but there wasn't. In defence of not in defence, but to be fair, there also didn't seem to be a lot of coverage on the Nationals.
No, there wasn't. I think there really wasn't at all. I think,
and they're the people who, like, the papers of record are the ones who are actually responsible. I
agree with that completely.
I could be wrong.
The paragraph I wrote at the beginning was you'd barely know because the media are whispering out the details, but the right-leaning mouthpieces are silent, and
that was what I was going to say. That if you go down the charge sheet of the people on the right, it's much more considerable than it is when you go down the people on the left.
Yeah, true.
Them's just facts.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I
less
think
empathy is required.
Less empathy.
Less empathy is required to be on the right, and
the
less empathy you have, the more chance you are to harm another person. Stands to reason, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah. That definitely makes sense. Oh, just so sorry. Sky News breaking. This is like becoming a newsreader now. Harrods.
Oh, is this? Oh, we've got more news. Security advisor, isn't he?
Oh, he has. He sacked Mike Walls. Mike Walls and his compatriot have left. as national
Yeah.
security advisors. But no, it's just as Harrods has become the latest store to be hit by a cyber attack. So that's Marks and Spencer's, Co-op, and Harrods all this week.
Oh, I didn't know they'd been doing the rounds. Who's doing it?
Don't know. Something called Dragon Force is what I heard this morning. Sounds a bit like a 1980s computer game, but well, you know. M&S has been offline for nearly 2 weeks.
Shut up.
Yeah, seriously. Like they can't. They're not. They're telling agency staff to stay away. They can't buy anything online with M&S. You can't do click and collect.
Oh God, that's the first I've heard of this.
And their shelves are sort of starting to go empty because they can't put orders through. They're really like under the cosh, M&S, with this. And now Co-op, I think 2 days ago, have said that they've been hit, and then it's just flashed up saying Harrods has now been hit as well. So it's a coordinated. Pardon?
You see, I could kind of understand M&S and Harrods because they're like effectively high end for where they are, and obviously Harrods. But
yeah,
why Co-op? They're supposed to be the goodies, aren't they? Supposed to be.
I guess it's just ease of access. I mean, they'll be trying lots of different things, and if they can get into any system, they'll just go for that, won't they? I guess, but it's pretty worrying.
To what end?
Money.
Did they like hold them to ransom, or did they steal money when they get in there?
I think the last big one, they were definitely after money when they went after the NHS a couple of years ago. I can't remember when it was. They were after money then, but I think they just want to cause chaos as well. I think it's about doing damage wherever they can, whether it's Russia or wherever that are doing it. North Korea apparently are pretty big on cyber attacks as well, so they just want to disrupt. So
there's just no sense to any of it.
I guess, yeah, we'll see what happens, but it's a bit worrying that the UK specifically is quite vulnerable, that we're not prepared for stuff like this, really.
We're not prepared for jack shit because everything's always been short-term planning, hasn't it?
Yes, exactly. That's it.
And then COVID came along and we realised the consequences of those actions.
Yeah, we did. Well, I mean, I assume they'll be trying to get national infrastructure as well at some point, you know. So as long as that's the scary thing. I think I've watched too many Spooks episodes from when it was on in the 90s, but you know, they target, you know, the gas lines or the power lines or whatever, then we're in trouble. But as we saw with Spain and Portugal during the week, when you lose your power and your internet.
I don't know. I think it'd be a bit pandemic-y again.
Yeah.
And I quite enjoyed that because all I wanted was for the world to stop because I thought I was going mad. And then it all was revealed.
and it did for a bit. Yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a weird tangent on cyber attacks, but it's quite interesting that, as you said, lots of places in the UK are very, very underprepared for stuff like that.
Oh, I had an old boss, John Gibson, who was an insurance director person, and he'd come to the company we were both working at from National Grid.
Oh, yeah.
And he told me it's got to be best part of 25 years ago. He said our infrastructure is so dilapidated and so in need of complete overhaul and modernization. He said we should be having blackouts. I don't know how they're managing for it to not happen, but National Grid at some point is just going to fall over. I mean, I'm still waiting, but you know, I don't think they've invested since then.
No. I know it could be any day. Everything's sticking plaster politics, though, isn't it? It's just, let's not think about, like you said, 10 years, 20 years down the line. Let's just fix it now. Cross our fingers and hope for the best.
There was something else in the week I was talking to somebody about, and we were talking about short-termism and how the only thing, it might have been a Cheryl actually, it was like the only thing that makes any sense of all of it, of all their behaviours and all the weirdnesses, is if they believe that civilization will end shortly after their lives end.
Right.
And it's a fuck it, we'll take everyone with us thing.
Yeah, that's quite depressing thought, but yeah, it kind of makes sense.
You know, there are remedies.
Well, yeah, true. I know, it makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I can't. We because we were talking about how it's just nuts. Obviously, we've been chatting for a few years, and nothing else makes any sense apart from the fact that these people are just not well psychologically, or at least even if they are, because they're coping and their output isn't a problem to their lives. The problems they're causing to so many other people's lives is parasitic.
Yeah.
By any metric.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was young asking about why people died all the time, and you get told, well, that's just life. There's nothing that can be done, except we know different now, don't we? There's loads of things that can be done.
Yeah, sure.
And we just need a society that adheres to the health of the human person being the most important thing.
Yeah, rather than the health of the wealthiest bank balances. Yeah, definitely. It would make life a lot nicer to be part of, wouldn't it?
For everybody, that's what I don't get.
It goes back to what you said earlier. It's the greed thing, that it's a sickness with greed, isn't it? And the more you have, the more you want. And you see that with the billionaires and Musk and Bezos and all that lot. And, you saw that with Bezos specifically this week when he dared to go against Trump, and then within less than an hour had a phone call.
Oh, and he went in to see him, didn't it? It's all fine now.
Well,
it was only limited and specific. We weren't going to do it on everything.
Yeah, exactly. List his tariffs on Amazon webpage, but that did not last long.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with transparency exactly?
Well, it should be that. It should exactly be that. And obviously Bezos's mindset was like, that's the right thing to do. But then the greed part kicked in, because Trump obviously said, well, no, we're not having that, because you're giving the game away. And we'll stop giving you money, and we'll stop, things will become very difficult for you. And Bezos obviously is more concerned about his bank balance than he is about the good of the people. And then an hour later, it was a non-issue. But yeah, as you said, it happens up and down with every single thing and every bit of society, doesn't it? Unfortunately.
Yes.
Oh, that was quite depressing.
Seem to be that way. I know.
So, should we move on?
It's all really depressing now.
I know it is. It is quite depressing. Should we move on to Wes Streeting?
Yeah, go on.
Because I've written a big thing about him, and I'm going to put it out as an article on Substack and Twitter probably next week. It all stemmed from Richard Tice being on LBC. When he said that, I'm going to quote this actually, so let me read it. He said, I quote, "There are people using mental health as a modern day equivalent of back pain, and disabled people are swinging the lead." That's his quote when he was on LBC talking to a caller on a phone-in show. And this is a problem with reform as well, specifically, is when they get put on the spot, then you see them for who they really are. And that was not a party line. That came out by accident. Disabled people are swinging the lead. I mean, I was just like, what the fucking hell? That's just insane.
Well done.
Yes. I thought you might have something to say about that.
As somebody who suffered with depression all my life, who had to present at the GP at the age of 21 when I woke up with a slip disc for no reason.
Really?
And was then called a liar for 7 years.
Wow.
And also had endometriosis and was called a liar for 7 years. I find his words to be detestable, and the outpourings of an ignorant twat.
Well, yeah, he is that.
What's his qualification? You see, the trouble we got with these people, they're all very good at being careerist suit wearers and saying the right thing at the right time and towing the party line. What they don't seem to have is any experience or knowledge of anything in a specific area at all.
No, yeah.
Certainly not when it comes to being a human being and experiencing life. They have such limitations on their experiences because they've cosseted themselves against all the dangers that about being poor, for example. So nothing's ever going to affect them. So they don't know what it's like to wear other people's shoes. I'm sure I know more about cybersecurity than he knows about mental health. As you know, Don, I fixed my headphones earlier by shaking them. So,
worked.
hey, it worked. I told you I was an expert.
It did work. It was
It's
impressive.
just
No, I know. I agree.
on top of everything they've done to disabled people, on top of the scaremongering and the gaslighting and the continuing eugenics, for him to come out with that is just a slap in the face.
No, it's horrific. I couldn't believe he'd said it.
And it not only does it terrorize people, but it makes them question themselves when they are genuinely unwell.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh God, maybe I shouldn't be allowed to be. Maybe I'm just making it all up. And you beat yourself up. I did it for fucking years. It took me years to accept my limitations.
Well, that's it.
And up until then, I blamed myself for it.
That's it. I think that's exactly what they're doing. And I mentioned it on Twitter, and I said, this is just, but there's no coincidence that the week before or a couple of weeks before the time that happened, RFK Jr., the health secretary in America, came out with very, very similar stuff, that he's going to know the cause, in inverted commas, of autism by September. I mean, what? Are you really? No, you're not. And then he went on to say about the usual stuff that he doesn't really believe as autism as a condition. And I'm going to read a quote from him because what he said was quite ridiculous as well. Where is it? So RFK said that many autistic children were fully functional and had regressed into autism. These are kids who will never pay taxes, never hold a job.
The point.
Never play baseball. They'll never write a poem, and they'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. That's what he said. He's the health secretary of the United States of America, that man. I mean, yeah, it's just beyond belief what they're coming out with. But then the Tice comment was about 2 weeks later, and I thought, well, the Bannon Farage reform link, there's no coincidence in what RFK Jr. said to what Reform was saying. And I know Tice let that one slip because it's just a disgusting comment what he said, but what they continued down that line. And unsurprisingly, I got loads of replies on Twitter to say, what about Wes Streeting? Because he said the same sort of thing.
That's whataboutery.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's textbook whataboutery. And I said, so I posted about it, and as always the way, the whataboutery kicked off with people, but rightly in this instance, saying Wes Streeting had made similar comments. And everyone said to me, well, you're not going to mention Wes Streeting or Labour on the podcast, are you? You're not going to have a go at them. The amount of times I've been called a Labour troll or a Labour bot this week is insane. Seriously, I mean,
the assumption is just ridiculous.
Yeah, in the hundreds, I'd guess.
I get people say to me, yeah, well, you voted for them. I'm like, where exactly did you get the thing that I'm a Labour supporter, please? Because no.
I had that, what's her name? Paula London. Have you come across her on GB News?
I've got a hunch she's blocked me.
Well, she replied to me today and said that I was a rape gang apologist because I didn't like Reform. Well, thanks. Right, okay.
Well, the two are interconnected and never shall they be removed.
I know. I said, how do you know that? She said, well, you're sticking up for Labour. I said, show me where I'm sticking up for Labour, please. I'm not. I haven't. I really haven't. Not since the general election at all, by any stretch, stuck up for Labour and their policies. But anyway, so because of that, I thought, well, okay, I've said to a lot of people, I said, well, you're going to have to listen to the podcast on Wednesday because I'll mention Wes Streeting and I won't be blowing smoke up his arse because I think he's a strange one. So I've written.
I do reckon he might know more about mental health than Tice knows about autism, though.
Quite possibly. Quite possibly. But Streeting's comment, let me just find it. Wes Streeting said that mental health was being overdiagnosed. I mean, in a very similar vein to what the rest of them are saying on the right. That there's it's
actually the opposite of what is actually true. But,
completely right. There's just such a failure in mental health services across the country, and the NHS is just awful. So it kind of led to a lot of people wondering what his background was. It led me to wondering what Wes Streeting's background was. I said he's a bit of an odd fish within the Labour Party. I think that's true. He's kind of what people might call a blue Labour or Tory light. Very much a Blairite in his politics and his history. Started off, he was the president of the NUS for quite a long time, and then the UCAS director. So he sort of comes from a background of education rather than anything else. Go on.
So weird how so many of them start out in really worthy places.
Well, this is what I thought.
And then they hit Westminster and something happens to them.
Because
they sell their soul to the devil.
Well, I think I've got an answer.
Is that not it? Selling their soul to the devil?
Yeah, it is. But it's dressed up as he joined PricewaterhouseCoopers as a consultant. So
There we go.
Yeah.
There it is.
That's it, isn't it? So he was pretty. He seemed like a good history, you know, being pretty centrist Labour, but you know, doing good stuff with the NUS. And then he was the education consultant for Stonewall for a little while, and he did a lot of good work against tackling homophobia in education across schools. Brilliant, good stuff. But then,
I think he's who Darren Grimes wants to be.
I think,
but just can't because he's not him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Quite, there's a bit of a similarity in the way they look as well. You know, they've got a big shiny forehead. I might cut that out, but I'm not sure. But
Grimes doesn't have what Streeting.
No, he definitely
upstairs.
I've got no clue as to that. Yeah, you might be right on that. That's interesting. Grimes aspiring to be Streeting, but yeah. So yeah, he did good stuff before. Then he went on to become before he moved to become councillor for Redbridge, London Borough. He moved to PricewaterhouseCoopers to become a consultant. And so you go from being worthy, as you say, doing a good job in different...
So hang on, he left the union job.
Yeah.
Of working
PwC.
on...
Well, it was Stonewall he left at that point.
Yeah. I don't understand where the professional crossover is.
No.
What do consultants of a chartered accountants do? That's PricewaterhouseCoopers chartered accountants, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's overall sort of where they started out anyway.
It is, and they do business management and they do lots of things with receiverships and taking over.
So how would being a spokesperson for the gay community translate into being a business consultant for a business firm?
Well, I think it's a
is it who you know, not what you know thing?
It might well be. And I just think it's a stepping stone to have something on your CV before you move into politics, right? They just want to have business knowledge or whatever it might be. It wasn't very long he was at Pricewaterhouse, but it was about a year, I think, but I'll double check. But then he decided to become a Labour councillor and he was elected in 2010. And that sort of paints his background credentials a little bit, but I do think that step between, like you say, the union job, the Stonewall job, PwC, Labour, is a bit of an odd step, isn't it? It's out of place with the rest of his background until he becomes a politician.
Calling me suspicious.
So I'm not going to go into his background on the podcast, but there's loads of stuff I'll write about, a bit of it, but you can Google it. It's you know, he's all there. But in 2024, so he was Shadow Health Secretary at this point, is where things went a bit dark. And he met with the Bayswater Support Group. Do you know about this lot?
I know where Bayswater is. I don't know about the support group. The
Bayswater Support Group are, well... Okay, so the Bureau of Investigation...
Is it Russian?
No, they're British. Okay. Their parents...
That's where the Russian embassy is.
Oh, okay. No. The Bureau of Investigative Journalism describes them as a parent group engaged in anti-LGBTQ plus conversion practices. They think that trans kids are not real. They believe that there's no such thing as a trans kid, that they're being converted in schools to become trans. They're a really, really gross group of people. And Wes Streeting's got some connections to this group. And he's got anti-trans sentiments. He's mentioned lots of things.
See, to me, as somebody without a dog in any other fight,
it
really looks like the gay people are pulling up the drawbridge.
There's a definite section that are, I think, for sure. Yeah.
And I don't get it.
No, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. It's the LGB group, isn't it? They're very separate to the L. They don't like the T bit or the Q bit or the plus bit. The LGB alliance, a really nasty group of people, from what I can tell. And you're right, it's pulling up the drawbridge behind them, and it's they've got their rights, they've fought for them, and they've won them. But now everyone else can just fuck off, as far as they're concerned.
That brings us swiftly to maybe that Chloe Dobbs is a member of their group. You know, the one that went filming some poor trans lady in the train station. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
A trans lady went to use the toilet, washed her hands and left, and this little scrote grifting bint filmed the poor woman walking across the platform, station concourse.
That's
afterwards, screaming that she'd just used the toilets. And what a disgrace. And of course, all the usual TERFs pile in. I've never come across such a irrationally terrified bunch of people as TERFs.
No, they're horrible people.
They
really,
just
really people.
Deal with your own insecurities, you myopically minded little bastard. Leave people alone. This poor person just needed a wee.
Yeah.
In a stall.
Yeah, exactly.
And what? Nothing happened.
I don't get
apart from you getting your own knickers in a twist and showing yourself to the world, basically, for who you really are.
Potentially stalking this woman, you know?
Exactly.
It's following someone and filming them in a train station is not all right. It's not normal behaviour at all, is it?
No.
And I do think that, unfortunately, the ruling last week is pushing this really hard, isn't it? And it's just making the worst people come out as even worse than they were beforehand. It's pretty scary times if you're trans, and I just hope, you know, it settles down and people just stop being dickheads and leave them alone and let them just be normal people and get on with their lives.
It's just...
The toilet thing's just bizarre, right? Because I remember I lived in Leeds in the 1990s, and I was chatting to my friend the other day, Tim, who I was friends with from back then, and we used to go to a bar in Leeds called Bar 38. This would be 1997, I think, probably when it opened, and it had mixed toilets, you know, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's got mixed toilets," and they went, "Oh, okay," and then nobody ever spoke about it again, and that was it. That was it.
For decades.
Exactly. I mean, who gives a fucking toss? It's like you're in a store, you go for a piss, you come out, you wash your hands, and you go back to get your beer or whatever. I mean, it's just insane, this obsession that's sort of come out with these people. It's gross.
And, you know, like we said, they're going to struggle either way, because if a trans lady isn't allowed to use a lady's toilets, is a trans man.
Trans man, yeah, exactly.
And how do we tell the difference?
I've seen some trans men that are pretty fucking hench looking, and like, yeah, what do they do? Yeah, I know.
Well, do you have to wait for Chloe Dobbs to come with a camera and take a photo of your genitalia?
Or Graham Linehan, or whatever his name is.
Oh, God, don't get me started on it. Just grow up, you sad little people.
Yeah, they got no lives. And they need to back the fuck off and leave these people alone, as far as I'm concerned.
If you're worried about, like, women and girls being sexually assaulted, go and do some work on educating men. No offense, present company accepted.
Absolutely.
But, you know, men are responsible for 90% of crime and, like, a higher percentage of sexual attacks. So,
of course, yeah. No, definitely. There's no rational discussion to be had with these people, because they don't.
That's the word.
Yeah, there's no rationality involved in it whatsoever. So I saw the Wizarding Witch put out a tweet yesterday. She's set up a website now called Trans Crimes. Have you seen this? transcrimes.co.uk or .com or something. And she's now going to start listing trans crimes on her website. What the fuck is wrong with that woman?
Do you know what? As you know, I've spent a lot of time reclining, watching YouTube over the years, and I've seen some trans predators in America, obviously. Never actually seen one from here. Yeah, I'm sure they exist, but they're like, in America, there's that many of them.
Yeah.
And they are clearly very unhinged people. no one's like looking at them going, "You look amazing." They're just not, they have illnesses other than the fact that they may or may not think they're trans.
Yeah.
Trans isn't a fucking illness.
No, of
But
course.
any demographic or sexual persuasion can carry a psychotic problem.
Of course.
It has no bearing on who you shag and what way you do it.
Exactly.
Everyone who has a brain can be subject to all sorts of things. So you can't, and like I said, we're focusing on this like pinhead of myopia while there's millions of other crimes just being allowed to carry on. We've basically decriminalized rape and sexual assault.
It seems that way. It feels like it, doesn't it? It's just awful.
That's what women should be scared of. Men who can like really damage you, not like, oh, well, they might put a dress on and go to the toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the history of man, nothing stopped a sexual predator like the Seinfeld ladies.
Yeah.
It doesn't. If someone's going to go out and do something, they're going to go out and do it. Doesn't matter where it is.
No.
It's just an absolute fucking nonsense. But it distracts people from their own issues, I suppose, doesn't it?
It does.
Certainly the people on the right.
Yeah.
The more they're hating on other people, they don't have to focus on what's going wrong in their own lives, which is more often than not the actual problem.
Yes, definitely. Projection. Definitely. Yeah, that was
and as for RFK, how they can have a minister in charge of health who sounds like he couldn't fight his way out of an open coffin is beyond me. That man literally presents as the Walking Dead.
He is. He's a very, very strange character, RFK Jr.
Well, he's not a particularly nice man either, is he, going by his history?
No, he's not.
I'm not saying nice doesn't win you prizes for anything. Trust me, I should know.
No, he's got quite a violent history.
He doesn't come across as a likable man.
No.
And if you want to be convinced by anyone or you want to convince anyone, you need to be likable.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Definitely. I'm going to segue that back to Wes Streeting.
We haven't finished. That was the opening.
No, we had a bit of a complete sort of tangent there into the trans thing, and we were going to mention it last week, weren't we? But we didn't actually get around to it, and because we rambled about loads of other things for too long. Yeah. But I'm glad that we have spoken about it because it's important. And that stupid woman, Chloe Dobbs, that put that tweet out yesterday someone needs to have a word with her. But
she looked like she was about 13, so
yeah.
I mean, relative. I'm being a div, but relative to middle age, and we were all young once, weren't we? Fuck me.
Yeah, but I was not. When I was young, I wasn't thinking about things like that. I wasn't. But then
I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that I can imagine being a young 20-something just taking off on Twitter who thought, oh, my followers are going to love this, and then going and behaving like an abject cunt. I can see that happening. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I can definitely.
I'm saying she might not be an entire sociopath just yet. She might just be chancing her arm as a young person.
A burgeoning sociopath, but not a fully formed one. Yeah. But yeah, it could just be social media. Everything's about clicks, isn't it? So yeah, let me bring it back quickly and we'll finish off about Wes Streeting. But it was just basically he'd met this group of horrible anti-trans called the Bayswater Support Group, and he has met them more than once, and he's refused to answer questions about his meetings with them, which is pretty sus as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it's not very democratic, is it?
Yeah, and especially when there's a group called Trans Kids Deserve Better. A group of teenage trans activists, that's quite hard to say, have tried to meet with Wes Streeting on lots of occasions to put their case across from the other side for trans kids' healthcare. But he's refused repeatedly to speak to them. He won't speak to them.
Sounds brave of him.
Yeah, it said they've been leaving a paper coffin outside of his constituency office every day since August 2024 in protest. To protest the ban on the puberty blockers, but he won't. He refuses. And they were two of them were escorted out of a venue where he was speaking. He wouldn't even acknowledge their existence. So yeah, that's Wes Streeting. I think he's, you know, he said
How dare they? They are public servants.
this is
They
it.
are there to serve the public.
I don't know what it is with him. The Good Law Project did some research last year and then followed it up this year, and they think with their research that over 60% of his political donations have come from private healthcare.
Yeah.
Or people linked to private healthcare, not specifically from private healthcare, but people that are very heavily involved in it. And you have to think, well, you can't take that much money, 175 grand off of people, whatever it is, and not be swayed in some way, you know. But
well, where's the we'll see, won't we?
All politicians take money, you know. He's not done anything wrong. But as the health secretary, it seems like it's a bad look. But there is. I just wrote that it would be very easy to draw a direct line from his political donations to his statement about using private sector to help prop up the NHS, which he has said on more than one occasion. So I don't know. When he started saying the same stuff as RFK Jr., it just got me thinking, and I don't like it. I don't like what I've read about him particularly. And although waiting lists are dropping slightly, but I don't think that was a very high bar that he came into when the Tories had absolutely laid waste to the NHS, and waiting lists were up into the 8+ million. So it wasn't probably that difficult to start getting them to fall, but they are falling. So, you know.
Well, I did ask at hospital this morning. I went for a DEXA scan.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked the two ladies in the room, I said, would you say things have got better or worse since Labour got into power? And they pled the fifth. So,
yeah.
Read from that what you will.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to play devil's advocate slightly on that and say it's a bit too soon to tell. We'll see. But
that genuinely could have been why I took it as we're not going to say anything because you might talk about it. So I took it. You never do know, do you? Not that it really matters, but if something had been miraculously lifted and they might have mentioned it. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, but nothing really has changed.
No, I mean, it is too soon, and notwithstanding, as angry as I am with them for the benefits issues, I do understand things take time to fix.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there must be a million tweaks to the NHS that has to be made in order for things to be significantly improved. A million tweaks. But Full Fact have got an excellent article online. I'll put a link to it. And it breaks down every single area of the NHS and by treatment and whether things are going up and down. And almost all of them are on the downturn, which is obviously good. But it's minimal, but it's the right way for now. It's the right direction. So we'll have to wait and see. But
I don't know. I worry about it because I'm waiting for a date for surgery on my neck at the moment.
Oh, right.
And I got sent to, I think my referral got sent to the Walton Centre for Neurology in Liverpool.
Right.
And they then bounced it to a private consultant who's doing NHS work. And I have not had one interaction with that man. I've had one in person that I had to wait a year for because there is nothing that has happened in this chain of events that I haven't had to chase up. And it's a private company that will be billing the NHS. I don't even want to know how much for taking on my treatment. I mean, me and thousands of others, I'm sure. He's rung me from the golf course before now for a telephone appointment he'd forgotten about. And had to front up and go, I'm really sorry, I don't have your files. We're like 18 months after I first got my referral. He agreed I needed surgery over a year ago, and I'm still sat here waiting. And this is a private company.
Yeah.
If they were charging the NHS for doing a smacking great job, I'd be all delighted because that would be progressive. But it seems, I don't like to say they're milking the government. I wouldn't know. But I've had like 4 appointments with him so far, and I've had to wait an hour for each
Yeah.
one, and then I've had to ring his secretary in Leeds. He offered me immediate surgery in Sheffield without even meeting him
Oh, really?
on my fucking spine. I'm like, what? I haven't even seen. Yeah, but I can see your MRI here. Oh, well,
Yeah.
as long as you're happy with that, then fuck off. Anyway, he forgot about me for so long, he had to send me for another bloody MRI. Who's paying for that?
Yeah.
So I have my concerns, but I think that, they're general concerns that you have about everything everywhere, I suppose, aren't they?
I went through the similar process a couple of years ago. I
Ugh.
had a surgery on my arm. I had a huge big lipoma in my muscle, and I went through the private hospital in Bristol, but via the NHS. I didn't pay for it. It was very similar, very very limited communication. Hardly spoke to anybody. Like, got a letter saying you're in on this morning. You'll be in overnight because it's a pretty big operation. Fine. Actually, on the day they said no, you're not in overnight. You're off. Off you go back home. After about an hour after the operation, so I was in and out. So they're obviously billing the NHS for me to be overnight patient.
Do you know,
But they
I'd
hoofed
completely
me out quickly.
sorry, I'd completely forgotten. But for a good 5 years, I had private healthcare cover through work,
Mm-hmm.
and like having raging endometriosis, that was unbelievably helpful.
Mm. Yeah.
And when I think back to all the surgeries and consultations I had in private medicine, I didn't have to put up with any of what I'm putting up with under the NHS. So it must be a 2-tier thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But I bet the charges are different.
Yeah. I've been through private surgery as well, but that
Do
was
you
in
think
Portugal.
can you put through FOIs for that?
Probably.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Should make a note.
Yeah, do. Yeah, I had to go private for I had to have back surgery as well. But I did when I was living in Portugal and we didn't have healthcare, so we had to pay for it, unfortunately. But they were amazing. It was unbelievable treatment. But it wasn't.
Do you know what? When you go abroad, it does tend. I mean, I'm sure there are some countries that are terrible. Don't get me wrong, but when you go abroad, you realise, in my experience anyway, that the NHS is not everything it was cracked up to be.
Yeah.
A bit like the England football team, a bit like everything that is great about Britain. Actually, it's not. You're being lied to.
Yeah. They are. The spinal surgery that I had in Portugal, which was pretty major, privately cost less than a third than it costs in the UK to go private, though.
Well, I don't even know if I ever told you. I had to go to the endometriosis made me infertile.
Oh, right.
And I ended up going to Moscow for donor egg treatment.
Seriously?
Albeit 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
But their success rates were through the roof compared to certainly this country. And like you, it was about a third of the cost.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget walking into it's just this pretty little building, but just like a small sort of private unit. And we stepped into like the porch area, and you had to put on all like shoe covers and hats and I was like, I looked at Will's dad and I'm like, oh, this is a bit clinical.
Yeah.
Well, we are in a medical facility, I suppose.
Yeah.
And when you sit there and you're like, never seen anything like this at home.
No, I know. It was the same in Portugal. Like before the surgery, and like I had a private room and everything because I had to pay for it. And
nice.
They give you like proper scrub. You have to seriously scrub yourself. You have to get put in sterile gowns. This is before they even look at you, before surgery and stuff. Although they did, when I was they took me down and when I was next to the operating table, they were just about to do the anaesthetic, and the really cool anaesthesiist, very trippy kind of hippie guy. They just stripped me off completely bare naked, like in the middle of the theatre, with all the nurses putting things in me, and just I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But
no warning.
No, none at all. Literally just ripped the ground off.
Jesus.
Fine, okay. So that was a bit different, but yeah, no, altogether a good experience. But yeah, that was.
What did you have done?
I had to have a discectomy down at the bottom of my spine. So they took about 80% of one of my discs away. Because I had extreme sciatica. When my son was a bit younger, I picked him up in his baby seat out of the car and twisted badly, and it popped the disc out. And about a year later, I couldn't even put my own shoes on. I was in so much pain. So they had to,
4-5?
I think so. 5, yeah, something like that. I can't remember.
That was my first one.
Was it? Yeah. Did you have that done as
It's
well?
a bastard.
Oh,
No, I've had no surgery, and that's why I'm waiting for my neck. They told me that. Well, I've been told various things throughout the years, many of which have turned out to be completely untrue.
Yeah.
But they said because I was so young at the time, if they'd have removed the interfering disc within a decade, the one above and below it would be knackered through compensation.
Well, that's what's happening to me now, unfortunately. Yeah.
Oh, well, then that bit was true.
It was.
He also said,
yeah.
Well, yeah, I just assumed mine had fused. I have no idea. But when I saw your man that I was just talking about in January, I had to go and see him. He actually made a comment about my lumbar spine and how I've got the same issue down there as I got in my neck. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know, but they said they couldn't do anything. I'd be on morphine forever.
Yeah.
Wrong. Not bad. But yeah, so I don't know if he'll be able to fiddle with me lower down after he's done my neck, but
fingers crossed. Yeah, back's bloody pain in the arse. Anyway, another massive.
What was it Wes Streeting said about backache again? Swat.
No, it was Richard Tice.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Get me idiots confused.
This people are using mental health as a modern day equivalent of back pain. Dickhead.
My GP actually turned around to me and said if I referred everybody that turned up for back pain, I'd be here all day. And then I became infertile because he had that opinion. So that's smashing. Because apparently any woman between who's of a fertile age, if they turn up with back pain, the first investigation should be gynecological, lower back pain. And yeah, that's the thing. So there we go.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right at all, does it? No. So we've gone off on that's the second massive tangent in this episode, but that's fine.
That's what we're good at.
Absolutely is.
We have to throw our own life experience in.
Well, that's what hopefully makes it interesting to people when you talk about things that are actually happening to us. Fingers crossed. Please let us know. Subscribe. Yeah, we've had quite a lot of new subscribers this week, which is really nice.
Oh, fabulous.
YouTube,
welcome all comers.
Spotify, we've had a few new ones, and I'm just quickly looking. YouTube, we're up to about 20 odd, which is not much, but after 2 weeks.
To start.
It's good. We'll get there. Yeah, so I think.
I mean, the only other thing I had was the Telegraph. Was it Telegraph or the Times headline about the terrible travesty that is parents having to bring up 2 children basically on minimum wage because they're paying for them to go to private school. Nice. It really is heartbreaking, and thoughts and prayers go out to them at this tough time.
I can't imagine how hard that must be for them to be on £100,000 a year and not be able to afford school. It's
borderline inconceivable.
Oh, yeah, it is, isn't it? It's just, how could we live in a country where that sort of thing is allowed to happen? That's all I'd say. For those of you listening on podcast apps and not seeing our wry smiles, take it.
Sugar, yeah.
They were that was sarcastic. But yeah. VAT on private schools, I think we said before the record. I want to talk about properly in a couple of weeks because there's some seriously interesting takes I've got on that from an article I read. So yeah, we'll come back to that at some point soon. And then all we've got is I'm going to put the clip in because it's funny, but it's also a bit strange because I was listening to the radio when I was out in the garden. I think it was Wednesday, and Sheila Fogarty was talking about kneecap, like you mentioned before, on LBC.
Oh, but she's doing a Swede, isn't she?
Well, yeah, she was a bit, but she had a caller who actually has replied to me on Twitter, but his name was Oisin, and I'm not sure if that's Oisin. It's an Irish name. And he did reply to me on Twitter after my post, excuse me. But he kind of brought it around to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And anyone who's ever listened to LBC these days, particularly certain presenters, will know that you can't say that. You won't get away with it. Particularly Sheila Fogarty, she does not accept that as factual.
They're infiltrated as well, aren't they? LBC. They're owned by
the global owners are a bit
global.
Yeah, exactly.
They're a bit zeddy.
Apparently so. So I've been told.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that, but yeah, it seems that way. Sorry. So Sheila forgot to press her cough button at one point when the caller had mentioned the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and under her breath said, "Fucking hell," and hadn't muted herself. So I clipped it up, put it on Twitter, and sort of sitting on about well over 500,000 views currently. But what's weird about it is on LBC, on their catch-up schedule, you can't listen to that show.
Get away. They've removed the whole thing.
Yeah. Everyone else is above and below her on the LBC app, the global player. You can listen to the catch-up.
Just that little Kinel got it cancelled.
Yeah. Well, they've definitely removed the catch-up.
So describe it as genocide, and many countries around the world also do.
I'm just doing my job, Oisin. You describe things your way, and I make points as a journalist. Yeah, go on.
But the point is that when they raised that on the.
So she was on the next day, and I listened to just out of curiosity to see if she mentioned it, but she didn't mention it. It was just left to go. So, but don't mention genocide under Sheila Fogarty's watch because you'll get sworn at live on radio. That was quite.
Can you imagine wanging on about kids being killed? I mean, come on.
I know. How dare they? Again. Yeah.
I don't know how they sleep. I do not know how they sleep at night.
I wasn't going to mention it, but I will because it's interesting. I heard her today because I have LBC on sometimes in the afternoon when I was cooking this afternoon. And she had Alex Crawford on, who's a really good journalist from Sky News, who's always in war zones and hotspots and stuff. And she was doing an interview with Sheila Fogarty, and Sheila Fogarty was very gushing over how these people have been persecuted and were forced out of their homelands, and it was an absolute travesty that these people.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, right. And she was saying it's just a terrible thing to have happened to all these people being persecuted by ISIS for all these years. Absolutely no self-awareness there, none whatsoever. It's really shocking. And I just thought, this is awful. Why can you? Yeah, the lack of self-awareness was just unbelievable. I thought, from her, she's sort of very worried and concerned about these people. Rightly so, it was a genocide, but she can't accept it from the Palestinians.
That makes no sense, does it?
It's just not. It's unbelievable. It's just being brainwashed into a cult, as far as I'm.
And what she would then say well, they shouldn't have attacked on the 7th of October.
Yeah.
And we then say, well, Israel knew they were going to be attacked. That's why they engaged the Hannibal Protocol.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And also 76 years of being attacked.
I know. That you can't mention that on LBC. It's not right. It's not there.
Post-truth world, isn't it?
Yeah, that is. So anyway, that went from being my funny little thing into being a bit more dark. But
yeah, not so funny. We'll try harder for next week.
I'm gonna finish it. Adam Brooks again. Adam Brooks put a post out on yesterday. Hi, Essex Police. A lady customer who wants to remain anonymous has seen a Middle Eastern-looking guy around 25 to 35 years old touching himself inappropriately when women walk past him. Seen on Monday, 2 days previously, and in the forest off of Princess Road in Buckhurst Hill. But he tagged in Essex Police. So
why wouldn't you just ring the number? I can't remember. 101, is it?
111, I think. But
oh yeah, speaking clock. I'm after.
Or 118. What was it? Like the old directory.
I'm hopeless. Without Google, I'm hopeless.
Yeah, exactly.
But why would you not just ring them to report it? And why would you put it on Twitter?
My response is this a sick joke, Adam? Why would this ever be appropriate for Twitter? there are plenty of ways of contacting the police without making it performatively xenophobic. And
I bet he loved that. I bet he really appreciated the time you took to do that.
yeah, he wrote a really long post back to me, and I'm not going to read
Really?
it. You can. Oh yeah. Adam often replies.
I'll have to have a look on your timeline in a minute.
Yeah, have a look on my Twitter. But it started off with another idiot. Half of my area follow me on social media. You utter pillock. That was his sentence back to me.
Well, that's very intellectual.
I know. I said, you're very quick to name calling, Adam. It's not very becoming. And then he went on. But you can read, a lot of people replied under his tweet, very similar to what I did. And he went after all of them. He had a full-on meltdown yesterday. Maybe he was out in the sun drinking, I don't know. But he went crazy on Twitter yesterday. Worth having a look at his profile or mine. You can find it there. It's amusing.
It's surreal.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. Report a crime 2 days after the event via Twitter seems.
It's a nonsense, isn't it? I mean, it possibly should be filed under things that never happened.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
as a lot of things that they come out with should be.
Yeah, definitely. And we've had a couple of people. I put a tweet out this afternoon before the record saying if anyone wants a shout out. We've never done this before, which is exciting. So some people do. I should just add quickly that Adam Brooks is very, very welcome to reply. He's got the right of reply. So if he wants to send us a video or, get in touch, we'll definitely get him. See what he's got to say. Yeah. So the last thing is, I think I put a tweet out saying if anyone wanted a shout out, reply to me before 4:00. One person did. At Bonafide YT on YouTube, asked the question, if not already talked about, what should the Tories do to become a credible opposition? So that's a long question, I guess.
Well, I replied being quite glib, didn't I? I just said they could try adhering to sanity. And, I think that'd be the quickest fix for them, but I just... I think they've been held, well, not held hostage. They're willing participants of the zeitgeist, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So you make your own bed, you fucking lie in it.
Yep.
I made myself listen to PMQs to listen to Badenoch because I really struggle now to pay any attention to any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've got no power. I just want them to go and find a ditch to crawl into.
Yeah.
In lieu of that, I really struggle to take them seriously because I just don't want to. We've had enough. They did so much damage that I can't even see them as being credible anymore, to be honest. I don't know how that's all going to work out.
No, they've got we talked about it a bit last week, didn't we? They've got time. Badenoch's going to get the hoof shortly.
Yeah, but then you cut the head off a snake.
Well, it depends if they're going to if they want to be serious, like Bonafide is asking, credible, they have to take Jenrick and Badenoch out of the equation and return to more centrist, kind of moderate conservatives, whatever that means. But, James Cleverly will have to come back or someone like that. But
you think he's a moderate?
He's more so than John Robert Jenrick, isn't he? He's more central than Jenrick and Badenoch.
I think the trouble with Cleverly is he's got charisma. So he would be a very good leader for them, which is why I wouldn't want him in there because he's just. Sorry, I'm just on very shaky PC ground at the minute.
No, you're fine.
He's just out of the Boris mold.
He is.
Of people.
Yeah.
But without the desperation that Boris has got for adulation, I think. Otherwise, he's just the same type of person.
Mm. Oh, yeah, they are. That group of people that Boris Johnson had around him are all very similar. But
I still don't think any of them are responsible human beings.
No, I fully agree with that. But electorally, which is hard to say, they've got more of a chance with someone like that than they have with Badenoch, Jenrick, whoever else you want to put into that sort of culture wars, right, far right almost, with Jenrick, part of the Tories. But yeah. we'll see what happens after tomorrow. Lots can change. Lots will change tomorrow, I think. Particularly with the Tories.
Yeah.
I think the Tories
It will
will be
interesting.
up in the air again, looking for a new leader, maybe by tomorrow. The other comment we had was from Carol Hedges.
No, I love Carol.
Yeah, at Riot Grandma 72. She suggested a topic for the podcast, which is she put in a complaint to the BBC about the over coverage of reform in specifically the BBC, but in the media in general. We know that's happening. We know it's been happening, but it has got an awful lot worse. So, Carol, we will have a chat about that in a week or two. Properly, we'll cover that. If you'd like to get on, come and join us, have a chat about it. You're more than welcome.
Yeah.
Definitely get in touch. You know where we are. We'll get you in and have a chat about it. And then the last thing I want to finish with, if you're happy to finish up, is someone who I didn't realise that you knew well, and we've already talked about, our comment on YouTube from Claire Hill.
Oh, yeah.
She left us a lovely comment saying you're both so natural on the show, which is lovely. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, that's much appreciated because this is quite new stuff for us. So, yeah, I like it. That's all I've got.
Cool. Well, we've definitely rambled on enough today, haven't we?
We certainly have.
In the very wise words of Tupac Shakur, keep your head up. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you next week.
Nice. Ciao. Goodbye. See you next week.
Mwah.